All right. Hello. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. If you don't know me, if you're new to me, I'm Tia Marie, creator of the Sinatia universe. And I want to thank you for being a part of my tribe. If you are just catching me for the first time, let me know. I'd love to connect with you. And I'm really excited about what I'm going to talk about today, which is the concept of matrices. What I have been feeling pulling me in my field is helping people to understand what the singular matrix is or what a singular matrix is and how important it is for us to get into a place in our lives and in our comprehension of ourselves where we're really investing in building that internal structure. So a singular matrix is the matrix of reality or the shape of reality that builds itself up around your being. So everything in existence has these kind of fractals. If you can see it, like if you ever heard someone say to themselves, or if you've ever said to yourself, that's just not a part of my paradigm, right? That's just not a part of my reality. This is something that kind of comes across my field often because I find myself crossing paths with people or concepts or positions of awareness where I just realize that the other person's reality or the other person's awareness is true for them. And also, it just doesn't affect the way that I create and believe in my own life. If you have that sensation, or if you've ever had that sensation, and I feel like people are growing into a place where they're beginning to have that sensation more and more inside of themselves, then the reason for that is that you are really connected and tuned into your own singular matrix. When people talk about the matrix and unhooking from the matrix, stepping out of the matrix and taking the red pilling themselves from the matrix. To me, what that is, it's the first step or the first indicator that there are two separate realities in action here. There are two separate, very valid realities that we are experiencing when we are existing here in physical on Earth. And the two realities that we exist within is our own and the collective. So our own reality and then the reality that kind of gets lumped together in one big narrative inside of our minds and our experiences. We realize that the two are not the same. That moment where you wake up from that, where you red pill yourself, where you decide that you want to open your eyes in that metaphor, is the one where you realize that your reality and other people's reality are not the same. What I'm finding is a really important conversation to be having with ourselves and to be having with our awareness of the truth of this is that when we are experiencing that dissonance, the place that we need to focus in, the place that we need to pay attention to is our own reality being internally referenced, internally sourced, internally resourced, instead of understanding ourselves in the reflection of the external. So you can think of it like a mirror dimension. And I have a visual of this, and this is the way that I see it. It's like I see myself like within the sphere of the collective reality being inside of my own sphere. I realize that the magnitude of the collective reality and all the structures and the rules and the way that energy moves and the different influences and the paradigms and the beliefs and the religious beliefs and the financial beliefs and the societal beliefs and the gender role beliefs and the relational beliefs and the success beliefs and all of that, which lives inside the external matrix, is in some way pushing down on the weight or like putting pressure on me standing inside my own circle within a circle. if you want to just see it in that really simple visual for you to understand like the way that it's operating. If I do not cultivate the strength of my own individual matrix, my own singular paradigm, then the pressure of that collective paradigm, that collective matrix, starts to collapse my relationship to my own rules and regulations, my own definitions of self, my own energetic access to source, et cetera, et cetera. When that continues to happen, I have two options. I can either see that pressure as a form of alchemy or a catalyst or a call for me to develop and strengthen my own internal paradigm, or I can collapse under the weight of it. And this is what happens a lot when you see people losing their relationship to their own identity inside the thoughts and the beliefs of others. This is what happens when you see humans buy into success paradigms that they see for other people, only to live their life inside of that reality for most of their life and figure out that it doesn't actually satisfy them or it doesn't do much for them. This is what happens when people blame other people for the way that they feel because of other people having opinions that does not resonate with their own, and they cannot see the separation between their own singular matrix or their own internal paradigm and the external collective paradigm. The two may exist within each other, and everybody has their own as well. So there's overlap, and there's a dynamic relationship between all of these sort of singular realities playing in the whole game. But the truth is that they're not actually intertwined in any way. And when you learn how to understand that inside of yourself and cultivate that, what also begins to happen is that the strength of your own singular matrix or your own paradigm grows, and you don't end up in a place where you feel like there's any crossover whatsoever. And when there is no crossover, there is nothing to be a victim of, quote unquote, except for what you allow in and cultivate inside of your own internal reality. And so I think the metaphor or the realization of like this being the mirror dimension, it's like a reality within a reality within a reality, understanding that like the source codes of creation reproduce in a state of fractals. So it's like copies of copies of copies, and we see mirrors of the truth of creation and everything that we come across. But that feels to me like a very simple way for us to understand where we end and other people begin. It also helps us once we conceptualize and contemplate the effects on that in our own energetic field, in our own belief system, in the things that we have been programmed and coded with since the beginning of our lives. It takes the blame away, I think, that we want to put on external situations that we've been in to cause us to have developed the internal paradigms or the rules and the guidelines that we have. For me, what has been really powerful in my own work is to understand the complexity of a concept of self-awareness, and then to wrap my brain around it in some way, and then completely release that. It's like to fully immerse myself in a concept and then release my need to understand it and find out what is left. How much potential do I have access to now that I have viewed an aspect of my reality in an alternative or different way? The concept of the mirror dimension, understanding that we are a singular matrix inside of a collective matrix, for me then helps me to understand that, like, when people say, oh, your relationship is a mirror to what's happening inside of you, or your financial system or your financial situation is a mirror to what's happening on the inside, or how much you value yourself teaches other people how to value you. When we say things like this, I think what immediately happens is that we're filled with this sense of frustration and then maybe even a little bit of shame that on some level we know that we've created this situation that we're not super excited to be in. But yet at the same time, we don't understand the mechanism in us that was like off the mark that allowed us to create it in the first place. That's when the searching through the haystack, like the looking for the needle in the haystack, starts to become really unhelpful in the realm of spiritual searching in order to help us expand. And so if we did understand that, yes, okay, clearly, like my internal reality is being reflected in me in what I find and see in the external reality. But it's not really as complex as I would make it seem in order to find and suss out the nuance of what in me caused this, opposed to just understanding that's how it operates. And so the thing that I should work on and focus on is building the internal resilience and the internal strength of my own connection to my beliefs, the rules, the guidelines, the energetic source of my internal matrix. And then that will change what I see mirrored to me in my reality, right? So I've always found it as like an opposite approach to what most people do when they're trying to expand in some area of their life by doing like profound spiritual searching, et cetera, et cetera. And what I also want to say is that the soul blueprint and the soul DNA holds within it the capacity for us to reach and access potential. So, like limitlessness. And we were born with a blueprint for our soul, and we're born with a soul DNA, and we're also born with a human blueprint, and we're born with a human DNA. And within that lives the past, present, and the future. So, within all of that truth, we have access to this kind of sense of limitlessness that is bone deep, that is cell deep, that is like cellular matter. And the search for us to build up our own internal source of resilience and strength is like a profound calling. It's a profound calling. And what's happening inside of us as we interact with or meet that collective reality is a clear clarion call for sovereignty. And the call for sovereignty rejects that collective reality. And that's where you get the pressure. And that's where you get the identity crisis. And that's where you get the confusion. And that's also where you get the desire to start doing the spiritual evolutionary work, because the soul requires spiritual growth in order for it to evolve, because it's looking at expanding its awareness of itself and the reality around itself to match something that is not limited like human perception, something that is not three-dimensional. It's looking for awareness that can tune in and tap outside of what it sees and touch limitlessness and touch source and touch what is possible for you. And something to think about to really take this concept to another level for you is to pay attention to where in your life you feel like you butt up against an experience of reality that does not align or does not resonate, and where that is putting pressure on your sense of internal resource. because your internal reality, your singular matrix, your internal paradigm is fueled by your energy. It's fueled by your resource. It's fueled by the strength of your belief in yourself, truly. And it's defined by and distilled by your ability to separate your awareness and self-definition from the awareness and self-definition of others. And so, in some ways, it feels a little delusional, I think, when you first connect to it, because it completely rejects all forms of external definition. But you'll find once you tune into the truth of how much power you actually hold and wield to change not only your vibration, but all of the other people that enter your life field as a result of continuously raising vibration, raising self awareness, raising access to self power, raising access to your ability to speak clearly about yourself and communicate with others and weave within your own internal set of rules for the game that you're here to play. Once you do that, you'll find that you no longer end up in situations with people in the external that do not vibe at your level. I really believe that this is the definition of ascension, quote unquote, what people call ascension. I believe that ascension is first understanding and taking responsibility for the universe or the reality that you're creating. And then within that, separating yourself from the external, which is a complex conversation itself because there's a lot of things that we allow to define us. And then moving from that into continuing to raise your vibration and raise your vibration and raise your vibration so that you are, in essence, ascending to a different reality. That's what it feels like to me. And I think it's a really powerful practice to contemplate. Like, it's something good to think about the next time you find yourself in a situation where you feel extremely pressured, where you feel like you don't have the options to make the choices that you want to make, where you feel like somebody sees you a certain way and you don't agree with the way that somebody defines you. And like, how do you react to that? How do you use that as a catalyst to redefine and put that energy back in yourself versus expending it outward into a system that is not really designed to be changed by you in the way that you wish that you could change it by focusing your energy in that direction. It's not actually how it works. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. This is something that I've been contemplating recently. I also came across this concept in myself around the spiritual journey that we define connected to how we transform. Because if you remember, I said like the soul needs spiritual transformation or spiritual evolution in order to grow. The spiritual journey that we identify in ourselves is the one that will determine not only how we arrive to the place that we arrive, but what we find ourselves in at the end of that journey. So this is that last thing that I'm sharing is what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. But I find it to be really interesting. What are you on a healing journey? Are you on a journey of alchemy? Do you choose to spiritually transform by transmuting shadow? Do you choose to spiritually transform through emotional states? Are you doing it through energy? There's so many different ways that people do this. And I've been observing and studying like the outcome of that initial choice. And it's extremely fascinating to me. It's something that I'm looking forward to talking more about. So anyways, that is our talk for today. Thank you for being here. Like I said, if you are catching me for the first time, say hello, and I'll look forward to seeing you back in here. Bye.